I realized the house was never empty the moment I heard footsteps upstairs, even though I was standing alone in the living room, holding the only set of keys, and the realtor had sworn no one had lived there for years. That's the thing nobody tells you about buying a new house. It doesn't matter how fresh the paint smells, how clean the floors look, or how bright the windows are during the day. If something went wrong inside those walls once, the house remembers. The sound wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. Just 3 slow steps, heel to heel, moving across the bedroom directly above me. I remember checking my phone first. No missed calls. No texts. No motion alerts from the security system I'd installed that very morning. I called out anyway. Hello. My voice echoed back too cleanly. Too empty. And that's when the footsteps stopped. Not faded. Not walked away. Stopped. As if whatever had been moving suddenly realized I could hear it. A cold pressure settled in my chest, the kind you get when your body knows something your brain is still trying to deny. I stood there for a full 30 seconds, listening to the hum of the refrigerator, the tick of the wall clock, the distant sound of traffic outside. Normal sounds. Safe sounds. But they didn't make the fear go away. Because deep down I already knew something was wrong. See, this wasn't supposed to be a horror story. This was supposed to be the beginning of my new life. New job. New city. New house. Everyone says buying your first home is one of the happiest moments you'll ever experience. Standing in the doorway, keys in your hand, imagining furniture, holidays, memories that haven't happened yet. That's exactly what I was doing just an hour earlier. Laughing to myself, walking from room to room, planning where everything would go. I never imagined I'd be standing there moments later, frozen in place, afraid to look up at my own ceiling. The footsteps started again. This time closer to the stairs. Slow. Careful. Deliberate. Whoever or whatever was up there wasn't running. Wasn't sneaking. It was moving like it had all the time in the world. I reached for my phone, hands shaking, and pulled up the security app. Every camera was green. Every sensor inactive. No movement detected. I swallowed hard and took a step back toward the front door. That's when I heard it. A sound I still can't explain. It wasn't a voice. Not really. More like someone trying to speak without knowing how. A low, strained noise drifted down the stairwell, vibrating through the walls, stretching just long enough to make my skin crawl. I didn't scream. I didn't run. I couldn't. Because some instinct older than logic, older than fear, was telling me one simple truth. If I made noise, it would know exactly where I was. The sound cut off suddenly like someone had snapped a switch. Then the first stair creaked. I stared at the staircase, heart slamming so hard I could hear it in my ears. One step. Then another. Slowly descending. I backed up until my shoulders hit the front door. Fumbling for the lock, eyes never leaving the dark space at the top of the stairs. And that's when I saw it. Not a face. Not a body. Just a shadow thicker than darkness should be. Spilling down the wall like a stain that didn't belong. I realized something in that moment that still makes my stomach turn. Whatever was in that house wasn't surprised to see me. It was waiting. And as I finally yanked the door open and stumbled outside into the daylight, one horrifying thought followed me. If this is what happened on my very first night, what do you think happened to the people who never left? As this wasn't just my story. This was only the first of 3 true new house nightmares, and every one of them started the same way. With excitement. With hope. And with the terrible realization that some houses don't want new owners. They want replacements. Calm before the nightmare, before anything strange happened, before the sounds, the shadows, the fear. My life was painfully normal. My name is Daniel Harper, and up until that week, the biggest problem in my life was deciding whether I could afford a couch that wasn't secondhand. I was 30 years old, recently promoted at a mid-level tech company, and had just moved from a cramped apartment into my first ever house. Nothing fancy. A modest 2-story place in a quiet suburban neighborhood outside Columbus, Ohio. Tree-lined streets. White mailboxes. Porch lights that clicked on automatically at sunset. The kind of neighborhood where people wave even if they don't know your name yet. It was early evening, just after 6 p.m., when I unlocked the front door for the very first time as the official owner. The sun was still up, casting warm light through the windows, making the hardwood floors glow a soft amber. The house smelled new, but not in an artificial way. More like fresh paint, clean air, and the faint scent of wood that had soaked up decades of quiet living. I remember standing there for a moment, keys in my hand, just breathing it in. This was it. My place. I walked through each room slowly, not because I was nervous but because I was proud. The living room was empty except for a single folding chair I'd brought from my car. The kitchen was spotless, counters bare, cabinets creaking softly when I opened them. Upstairs were 3 bedrooms, all clean, all empty, all waiting to be filled with something new. Nothing felt wrong. In fact, everything felt safe. I set my backpack down, plugged my phone into the wall, and ordered takeout Chinese food from a place I'd been going to for years. Familiar food for a new beginning. While I waited, I opened the windows, letting in the cool breeze and the distant sounds of kids playing somewhere down the street. A dog barked. A car passed. Normal sounds. Comforting sounds. I remember thinking how quiet the house was. Not eerie quiet, just peaceful. The kind of silence you get when you finally step away from noise you didn't realize was stressing you out. I sat on the floor in the living room, back against the wall, scrolling through my phone and texting friends pictures of the empty house. Homeowner life, I joked. They congratulated me, sent laughing emojis, asked when the housewarming party would be. Everything felt light. By the time my food arrived, the sun had dipped lower, turning the sky outside into soft shades of orange and blue. I ate straight from the containers, sitting cross-legged on the floor, watching the light slowly fade through the windows. I wasn't thinking about ghosts, or past owners, or anything dark. I was thinking about curtains, about where I'd put the TV, about how good it felt to finally be in control of my own space. After dinner, I did one more walk through the house, not out of fear but habit. Locked the back door, checked the windows, turned on a few lamps so the rooms wouldn't feel so empty. Upstairs, the hallway felt warm and quiet. The carpet was soft under my feet. The bathroom light buzzed gently when I flipped it on. I brushed my teeth, looking at my reflection, smiling like someone who believed they were exactly where they were supposed to be. I changed into a t-shirt and sweats and lay down on the bare mattress I brought up earlier, staring at the ceiling of the master bedroom. The house creaked once. A normal settling sound, and I barely noticed. My body felt relaxed, comfortable, safe. I closed my eyes, thinking about work the next day, about errands I needed to run, about how tomorrow would be the first real morning in my new home. I had no idea that this calm, this ordinary, peaceful moment, was the last time the house would ever feel like it belonged to me. Because whatever had been waiting inside those walls had finally heard someone move in the house begins to notice you. I don't know exactly when the feeling started. Not fear, not yet. It was more like the quiet shift you feel when a room changes temperature, or when a conversation suddenly goes silent for no clear reason. I was lying in bed, eyes closed, when I realized the house didn't sound the same anymore. Earlier, there had been distant traffic, a dog barking somewhere down the block, the faint hum of life outside. Now there was less. Not silence. Just absence. The air felt heavier, like the house had sealed itself shut around me. I opened my eyes and stared at the ceiling, listening. Then I heard it. A soft thump. Not loud. Not sharp. Just deliberate. It came from somewhere downstairs. I held my breath, waiting. Nothing followed. Old houses make noise, I whispered to myself, though I wasn't sure why I needed to say it out loud. I rolled onto my side and closed my eyes again. Another sound. This time a faint scraping, like something being gently dragged across the floor. Slow. Careful. I sat up in bed. The scraping stopped the moment I moved. That was the first thing that didn't feel right. I checked my phone. 9:47 p.m. Too early to be dreaming. Too early for paranoia. I stood up and cracked open the bedroom door. The hallway light was still on, casting a soft yellow glow across the carpet. Everything looked normal. I stepped into the hallway, listening. The house felt larger somehow. The space between rooms felt longer than it had earlier, like the walls had quietly shifted when I wasn't looking. I shook my head and walked downstairs. Each step creaked under my weight, the sound echoing just a little longer than expected. The living room lamp was still on. The kitchen light glowed softly. Nothing was out of place. No open doors. No broken windows. I stood there for a moment, hands on my hips, feeling foolish. Then I noticed the air. It was colder. Not drastically. just enough to raise goosebumps along my arms. I walked into the kitchen and frowned. One of the cabinets was open. Just slightly. I was sure I'd closed them all earlier. I remembered the sound they made, the soft click. I closed it again, slower this time. The click echoed. Too loudly. As I turned away, I felt it. That familiar sensation. Being watched. Not from a specific direction. Not from a corner or doorway. Just from the house itself. Like the walls were aware I was moving through them. I laughed quietly and rubbed my face. Get a grip, I muttered. I headed back upstairs, telling myself the nerves would pass once I got some sleep. Halfway up I heard it again. Footstep. Soft. Measured. Behind me. I froze, one foot hovering above the next step. The sound didn't repeat. I stood there for several seconds, heart thumping louder than I liked, before slowly turning around. The stairs behind me were empty. The living room light flickered once, just once, then steadied. My mouth went dry. I climbed the rest of the stairs faster than before, closed my bedroom door, and sat on the edge of the bed. The room felt different now. Not threatening. Just occupied. I checked the vents, the windows, the closet. Nothing. But the sense of being alone had slipped away. Minutes passed. Then something brushed the wall outside my room. Not a bump. A slide. Like fingers trailing along paint. I stared at the door. The sound stopped right in front of it. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. Then slowly the door handle shifted. Not turning. Not pulling. Just testing. I felt my heartbeat in my ears. After a few seconds the pressure eased. Footsteps retreated down the hallway, each one quiet and unhurried. I waited until my muscles ached from tension before moving again. When I finally lay back down I kept my eyes open. The house creaked. The pipes sighed. Normal sounds. Except now, each one felt intentional. Like the house was practicing. Learning. And somewhere between exhaustion and fear, one thought settled heavily in my mind. Something in this house knew I was here, and it was taking its time. The moment the house stops pretending, I don't remember deciding to get out of bed. I just remember being on my feet, the room darker than it should have been. The air so heavy it felt like breathing through wet cloth. The hallway light was off. I was certain I'd left it on. That realization sent a sharp pulse of fear through my chest. I stepped into the hallway slowly, barefoot on the carpet. The house felt different now. Not quiet but listening. The temperature dropped suddenly. Enough that my breath fogged faintly in front of my face. Hello. I called out, my voice barely louder than a whisper. The sound didn't echo the way it should have. It felt swallowed. Then I heard it. A voice. Not clear words. More like a breath shaped into sound coming from downstairs. Low. Close. Wrong. Every muscle in my body locked up. This wasn't pipes. This wasn't settling wood. Someone or something was inside my house. I backed toward the stairs, gripping the railing as I descended. Each step felt heavier than the last, like the gravity was stronger near the ground floor. Halfway down, I saw movement in the living room. A shadow passed across the wall. Not fast. Not hiding. Just moving. The air turned cold enough to sting. I reached the bottom step and froze. The living room lamp was off. In its place, something stood near the center of the room. Tall. Too tall. It wasn't solid, not fully. Its shape wavered like smoke trying to remember how to be human. The thing slowly turned toward me. And I understood immediately. This wasn't an intruder. This wasn't a person. Its face didn't have features so much as suggestions of them. A hollow where eyes should be. A mouth that didn't open but still breathed. The pressure in the room became unbearable, crushing down on my chest until my lungs burned. I tried to speak. Nothing came out. The thing took a step forward. The floorboards didn't creak. They didn't move. It glided, leaving the faintest ripple in the air behind it. My instincts finally screamed loud enough to break through the paralysis. I ran. I bolted back up the stairs, heart slamming so hard I thought it would tear through my ribs. The temperature dropped further with every step, the walls seeming to narrow around me. Behind me I felt it move. Not chasing. Following. Patient. I slammed my bedroom door shut and locked it, throwing my weight against it as if wood and a flimsy lock could stop something like that. The door shook once. Then again. Each impact sent vibrations through the floor, through my bones. Go away, I gasped, tears burning my eyes. Please just go away. The shaking stopped. Silence. I stood there, shaking, barely daring to breathe. Then the whisper came again. Right behind my ear. You opened the door. I screamed and spun around. The room was empty, but the temperature dropped instantly, frost crawling along the edges of the window. The mirror across the room fogged, and in it, I saw a reflection that wasn't mine. A figure standing inches behind me. I turned, and the lights exploded. Darkness swallowed everything. Something brushed my arm, cold, heavy, real. That was the moment denial died. This wasn't a bad dream. This wasn't stress. This house was occupied. And whatever lived here wasn't surprised to see me. It had been waiting, learning my routines, testing my fear. When survival becomes instinct, the lights didn't come back on. The darkness wasn't normal darkness. It was thick, suffocating, like the room had been stuffed full of shadows. I couldn't see my own hands in front of my face. And then I heard it breathe. Right beside me. I stumbled backward, tripping over the edge of the mattress and hitting the floor hard. Pain shot up my spine, but adrenaline swallowed it whole. I crawled, didn't think, didn't plan, just moved. Behind me, the air shifted. Something passed through the space where I'd been a second earlier, cold, brushing my calf like icy fingers. I scrambled to my feet and ran for the door. The handle wouldn't turn. I yanked again, harder, panic screaming in my ears. The door finally flew open and I burst into the hallway, nearly slipping on the carpet as I ran. The house groaned around me, every sound amplified, distorted. Down the stairs. Now, I took them two at a time, barely touching the steps. Halfway down, the temperature plummeted and my foot missed a stair. I fell. Hard. My shoulder slammed into the wall, knocking the breath from my lungs. I slid the rest of the way down in a painful tumble, landing in a heap at the bottom. Before I could move, the pressure hit. Like something heavy stepping onto my chest. I gasped, clawing at the air, my vision narrowing. Shadows gathered above me, stretching downward, forming a shape that blocked what little light there was. I leaned closer. I felt the cold sink into my skin. No, 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 I choked. My hand brushed against something solid. My phone. Somehow it had fallen out of my pocket. I grabbed it and smashed the screen awake. The sudden glow filled the room. The shadow recoiled. It didn't scream. Didn't vanish. Pulled back like light, physically hurt it. That was all I needed. I rolled to my feet and sprinted for the front door, lungs burning, legs shaking so badly I almost collapsed again. The house fought me. Doors slammed. The hallway stretched longer than it should have been. The floor vibrated under my feet. Something slammed into the wall beside me, cracking drywall. I didn't look. I reached the door and twisted the lock, fingers slipping with sweat and terror. Behind me, the temperature dropped so fast it felt like my skin might crack. The whisper came again, louder now. Angrier. You don't leave. The lock clicked. I threw myself forward, bursting through the door and onto the porch, gasping as cold night air flooded my lungs. The porch light flickered wildly. I stumbled down the steps, nearly falling into the yard, and didn't stop running until I hit the street. Only then did I turn back. The house stood quiet, dark, normal. No shadows at the windows. No movement. Just a house. My knees buckled and I dropped onto the sidewalk, shaking so violently my teeth chattered. My entire body hurt. My chest felt bruised from the inside. I waited. 30 seconds. A minute. Nothing happened. Cars passed at the end of the street. A porch light flicked on somewhere nearby. Reality reasserted itself, but it felt thin, fragile, like it could tear open again at any second. I didn't go back inside. I didn't even step onto the lawn. I sat there until my phone battery dipped into the red, until my hands stopped shaking enough to dial a number. When the police arrived, they found me sitting under a streetlight, staring at the house like it might move if I blinked. They asked what happened. I opened my mouth and realized I didn't know how to explain it. Because how do you tell someone you barely escaped a house that didn't want to let you go? And worse, how do you explain the feeling that something inside was furious? Not because I ran, but because I almost didn't. Some doors don't stay closed. The police stayed for nearly an hour. They walked through every room, checked every door and window, shined their flashlights into corners I couldn't bring myself to look at. I watched from the sidewalk, wrapped in a borrowed blanket, my body still trembling in waves that came and went without warning. They found nothing. No broken locks. No damaged doors. No shattered lights. Even the cracked drywall I'd seen by the hallway looked untouched, smooth and perfect, like it had never been struck at all. One of the officers gave me a careful look. "Probably stress," he said gently. "First night jitters. New house." I nodded because it was easier than arguing. They let me collect a few things: phone charger, wallet, jacket, but I refused to step past the doorway. I stood on the porch while an officer went inside, my eyes fixed on the dark hallway beyond him. The house felt quiet again. Too quiet. I spent the night at a cheap motel on the edge of town. The room smelled like disinfectant and old carpet, but I didn't care. I slept with every light on, the TV murmuring softly in the background. For the first time since moving in, I felt safe. Morning came like a promise. Sunlight. Noise. Normalcy. I went back to the house just after 9 a.m. with a friend and a moving truck. Daylight made everything look harmless. The walls were the same soft beige. The floors still shined. The air smelled clean. I almost believed I'd imagined everything. Almost. As we loaded my things, I noticed something small, subtle. On the inside of the front door, right at shoulder height, were faint smudges. Not fingerprints. Longer. Dragged. Like someone had pressed a hand there and slowly slid it down. I didn't tell my friend. I sold the house a month later. No explanation. No disclosure. The buyer moved in with his family and sent me a friendly message, thanking me for such a quiet, peaceful home. I didn't respond. Weeks passed. Then one night, as I lay in my apartment miles away, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. No message. Just a voicemail. I pressed play. At first, there was only static. Then very faintly, a sound. A slow inhale. Followed by a whisper I recognized immediately. "You left the door open." I changed my number the next day. But sometimes, late at night when my apartment is perfectly still, I swear I can feel the air grow heavy. And I wonder, did I escape that house? Or did it simply follow me somewhere quieter?